Welcome to the latest Watercolors Aquarium Gallery video brought to you from the Aquarium Rush Studios in lovely and sunny downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan. It is a bright and sunny day here. It's really nice. If you're not from Michigan and you're watching these videos, we crave sunshine. It's not like the norm here. So when we get a little sunshine, we get excited about it.
I think it's official that we're either on par or grayer than Seattle, so we take what we can get.
Official. I see what you did there.
Oh.
Okay, we don't need to talk about sunshine anymore. Today we're going to talk about acclimating saltwater fish. We've learned of some failures out there, some people that had really good intentions and it did not work.
I think it's accurate to say that the majority of losses within the first 24 hours after we sell a fish is improper acclimation.
I think you're right. So the point of a drip acclimation is to give the fish a chance to slowly adjust to what may or may not be different water conditions. Every tank is going to have a little bit different salinity. The pH might be a little different. Some of those parameters that the fish are used to here might be different than what your parameters are at home.
However, they shouldn't be that different.
They should not.
Yeah. I'm thinking specifically of if you feel like you need to drip acclimate for 4 hours because your water's that different, you might want to consider why your water's that different.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up that way because I don't necessarily think that the people who acclimated for too much time thought their water was that different.
Yeah.
They just thought, hey, we have to do a drip acclimation, longer must be better.
Yeah. If some is good, more is better. It's the same reason people give us for when they do 100% water change and scrub out their filter media.
Yes.
Right? More is not always better. Enough is perfect.
Enough is perfect. Fish are very, very adaptable. If that adaptation happens a little bit on the slower side, that's better, and that's why we do that drip acclimation. But we're going to max that out at 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe every once in a while there might be a reason to stretch that out to a half hour.
Sea stars being
Sea
the
stars.
one notable exception.
Yeah, anything in any of the echinoderms.
Yeah.
Those are going to need to be a little bit longer.
But can I explain why that?
Absolutely, please do.
Because they have a specific biological reason. They are isoconformers, which means that
Word.
Nice.
That
I like
means
it.
that on the cellular level, they do not regulate what the ionic balance in their cells are. They conform to their environment.
Right.
So something like a fish or a shrimp, they don't do that, and that's
They
why
regulate internally.
Yeah, and so that's why
See, I use big words too.
Those are really good words.
But that's also why we can have freshwater fish and shrimp, and we don't have freshwater sea stars.
Right.
That makes perfect sense.
So that's why drip acclimating them for a very specific reason is a little different.
Yeah. So why not go longer? If 20 minutes is good, why isn't an hour better?
The first concern is oxygen.
I think the main concern is oxygen.
Yeah.
And it's a big one.
It is
It's
a big one. Yes, it is a big one. It is not the only concern, but it is the main concern.
The next one that worries me is, depending on how long they've been in the bag,
Yep.
ammonia.
Ammonia toxicity and pH. So
Ammonia.
what we're talking about there is, first let's touch on the oxygen issue.
Yep.
Right? You're talking about putting a fish that comes from a reef environment. Reef environments are highly oxygenated environments. Oxygen in water comes from the air, from the atmosphere. And the way that it gets in there is agitation, right? So if you can picture the waves on a coral reef splashing and smashing, that is driving oxygen into that system.
That surface is never still.
It is never still.
Even when it's still, it's not still.
It's not still.
No.
Exactly. So when we're thinking of something like freshwater betta, they come from very still waters. The oxygen level in that water is low. Saltwater fish just don't come from those environments.
No.
So oxygen is really, really important for those fish, and they can suffer from a lack of oxygen very, very quickly. So if you've got this little bitty bucket with this drip of water coming in, there's just no gas exchange happening at the surface. So every breath that fish takes releases CO2 into that bucket, and there's no way for that oxygen to be replenished. So going longer than 20 minutes, you're reducing the oxygen level in that tank.
Yeah, and honestly, I think, trying to think back, I don't have hard data, but I think the majority of fish that have suffered from improper acclimation, at least in our region that where our tanks,
Right?
a
Yeah.
high oxygen demand fish.
Yes. So now if we combine that or compound that with ammonia toxicity, ammonia burns gills and it reduces the ability of the fish to breathe. So you have a lower oxygen environment and now there's ammonia building up.
And the really spooky thing is that even if you address the oxygen thing, let's say you put a bubble in,
Yeah.
then I think your main concern becomes ammonia.
Right.
Because they've been breathing, who knows how long you've had them in the bag.
Mhm.
But that ammonia's been building up and CO2 has been building up and those both lower pH.
Mhm.
Ammonia is less toxic in a lower pH.
Right.
Now you've opened the bag, CO2 is starting to dissolve out, oxygen is kind of coming in. So,
pH is going up.
Yep.
Ammonia is becoming more toxic.
and then you start dripping in buffered water and you're slowly
Much
making
higher
you're slowly making your ammonia more and more toxic in that drip bucket.
As the fish continues to produce waste if they're in there for longer than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We do have some of our wholesalers that say they won't guarantee fish if we drip acclimate. They say put them directly into your tank water. And it's because of that risk of low oxygen and ammonia buildup. Now their fish have been shipped to us over 24 hours. They've had a lot more time to build up that ammonia in that bag.
Yeah. And I would say that one thing to keep in mind is that your fish can handle salinity jumps more than I think most people realize.
Yep.
When the big example here is that if we quarantine our fish here and I put them through a round of hyposaline, they experience multiple jumps of 0.02 salinity within like an hour, multiple times to get them down and then back up. I think it's safe to say that if your salinity is 0.02 different, your fish would probably not suffer.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's
I'd like to talk about,
Yeah.
like, we talked about the negatives, but I think we need to mention with all of that, why do we still do it? Like, why is that 20 minutes still so important?
Yeah.
For me, one of the biggest reasons, it has nothing to do with different water chemistry. It has to do with, this is the only time you get to observe this fish up close.
That's a very good point.
That 20 minutes of, like, you get to actually look at it, you get to see it really closely. If anything's wrong, that's a great time to notice it. You might see those speckles you didn't see in the fish store. You do need to get them used to the water, but for me, just that little observation time between buying and putting in your tank sometimes could help you catch something that you wouldn't see until after they came out in a couple days.
Yeah,
That's a
I will
very good
admit
point.
that when we're getting orders in, me, Ben, and Nick are noting this guy's very shy. Like we're gonna need to pay attention to him. So stuff like that is important. I guess never contextualized it.
Yeah, like I think that might be more important to me than the actual chemistry of doing a drip acclimation, which I still think is important.
Yeah.
Think of it a little bit like getting into cooler water. Right? If you just jump in, it's a little bit of a shock. But if you ease your way in, it's not quite as much of a shock. And that's all that we're doing here. Getting the temperature a little closer, getting the change in salinity and the change in pH, the water chemistry a little bit closer. But that's all we're doing. We're not trying to get it to match exactly. So a 20-minute drip acclimation with the water coming up somewhere between a drip and a stream, where the goal is to approximately double the volume. Take the fish out of the bucket using a net. Do not pour fish water into your tank. Take the fish out, net them, and then slowly release that fish into your tank. That's it. 20 minutes, done.
And we'll have Charles do a demonstration here too, so you can see how we do it, and we'll walk you through the steps.
Yeah, excellent. So there we go. That's another way to keep it fun, keep your fish healthier. Subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get more of these great tips and tricks.
Yeah, this one was actually a request from a question that I had said over acclimating is probably worse than under acclimating and didn't explain it in a video.
Perfect.
So we got a question and was like, okay, we need to explain it
It's our
now.
follow-up.
So if you have questions, we will answer them.
Yeah. Let us know if there are any videos you want to see. Make sure to listen to our podcast. It's the Watercolors Aquarium Gallery podcast. We get into much more nerdy detail on there sometimes.
Yeah, that's it. There's the gist. Let's have lots of fun and keep those hands wet.